Let's talk about Stranger Things. When it first came out, it was such an enjoyable, refreshing call back to movies of the past, such as Monster Squad, directed by Fred Dekker, Goonies, directed by Richard Donner, and The Explorers, directed by Joe Dante. These memorable movies were driven primarily by a compelling, grounded storyline that gave the audience a personal experience from a child actor's perspective.
He doesn't have knives! Do it! Do it! Wolfman's got knives!
Kids at the forefront driving the story. It was a formula that guaranteed success. Stranger Things seemed to have rekindled and captured the nostalgic imagination once again by having children fighting to overcome insurmountable challenges, which it did for the first few seasons. But this brings us to the part where we have to put down the 3D glasses, step out of the theater, and look at what's happening in reality, and ask what's going on with the latest seasons of Stranger Things. And how did Stranger Things go from an edgy sci-fi horror series to now what I dub soap opera horror? That's right. You ever wondered why lately when you are watching this show, it feels like you're watching a soap opera rather than a horror show? Well, there's a good reason for that. It comes down to one word: melodrama. That's right, melodrama. Keep this word in mind as we go on, because everything about the declining aspects of this series revolves around it. In fact, the addictive formula of soap operas relies heavily on melodrama. The Duffer Brothers, the creators of Stranger Things, have explicitly stated that they utilize melodrama as a core component of the show's storytelling style. You can tell if a movie leans toward melodrama by looking for over-the-top emotions, stereotypical characters, sensational plots, clear good verses, evil, and bombastic dialogue. Can you see it? That's exactly what Stranger Things has devolved into over the years. The facts are, it wasn't supposed to be this way. The start of Stranger Things wasn't built on melodrama. Critics and fans agree that the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things were primarily drama and mystery-driven, with a more grounded and restrained tone. The show's tone shifted in later seasons towards more spectacle, action, and, arguably, melodrama. Many viewers and critics agree it detracts from the original atmosphere and suspense. By deciding to shift tones and embrace the more exaggerated way of dramatization, they basically started to undercut the very foundations that drew people to this series in the first place. The characters that took years to develop started to become more exaggerated caricatures of what they once were, changing into walking memes to be made fun of later on. Horror series can suffer when melodrama outweighs realistic drama.
Semper Fi, motherfucker!
As emotional manipulation and over-the-top reactions often diminish the film's effectiveness and scare factor, melodrama is fundamentally about emotional manipulation, using exaggerated situations, heightened emotions, and simplified morality to powerfully force a strong feeling. I told you everything hinges on that word, melodrama, because it is the driving force of this show now. And if you view this series through that lens of hyper, over-the-top emotions and simplified morality, then the show starts to make sense to what's happening to it, why it is in this declining spiral right now. Quite simply, it's become harder to immerse yourself in a series that seems disjointed, constantly undulating emotionally, visual mental whiplash, as you watch your favorite characters become more and more unrelatable. For example, let's take another series that used children as the stars of their series, Welcome to Derry. Welcome to Derry is based on realistic drama, rather than manipulative melodrama, the HBO prequel series. Welcome to Derry, highlights its focus on serious themes like societal racism and human cruelty in 1960s, Maine making the human horror as impactful as the supernatural monster of Pennywise. The show contrasts itself from others, because it doesn't focus on cheap scares, but relies on deep character work and atmosphere for its chilling effect, according to the Los Angeles Times. The Duffer Brothers' original pitch for Stranger Things was for it to be an investigative drama and supernatural horror blend. Season 1, in particular, is often praised for being grounded, intimate, and having a realistic feel, focusing on character development and a slow burn mystery that made the danger feel more impactful. The early seasons were noted for their narrative restraint, building tension through atmosphere, silence, and unanswered questions. The supernatural elements and the upside down were treated as a lurking, abstract threat, which contributed to a sense of dread and mystery rather than over-the-top action. The characters in the first 2 seasons, from the children to adults like Hopper and Joyce, were generally seen as more believable and natural, dealing with loss, friendship, and trauma in authentic ways that resonated with the viewers on an emotional level. But wouldn't you say that sums up the problems facing Stranger Things right now, reflected in the ratings? It feels less authentic, from the friendships' interactions to the trauma, dealing with terror and fear, all comes across less authentic. Even in highly emotional moments like characters confessing their feelings or who they believe they are on the inside, all feels disingenuous, and this is not me saying this, but fans and critics. This is a byproduct of melodrama, where horror starts to suffer, realism starts to fail, and characters start to lose their authenticity. So it makes sense that fans will start to feel uncomfortable about seeing something that they were passionately supporting for so many years morph into a parody of itself with over-the-top melodrama. Remember, melodrama is a deceptive, manipulating tactic used to spike emotions in the audience, so it makes sense that characters will use their sexual orientation as a cudgel, rather than a natural, organic aspect of the series.
Pancakes, I'm so stupid.
Don't cry.
Stupid.
Don't cry.
I don't know anything.
What a loser.
Melodrama, by its nature, has a tendency to be highly unimmersive when the drama itself becomes sensationalized. A horror production that relies too heavily on melodrama, relationship conflicts, or drawn-out emotional arcs at the expense of scares and tension would start to lose its intended impact and resemble a soap opera in the eyes of some viewers. This is a common point of discussion among critics and fans regarding balancing character development with the genre's core elements of fear and suspense. The successful execution often comes down to the filmmaker's skill in weaving character drama into the fabric of the horror narrative without letting it overshadow the terror. So in the end, I hope that Stranger Things ends on a high note, because to me, it is not the beginning of the story that counts, but the end of it that will establish its pop culture legacy. I guess only time will tell. Tell me what you think, and share some of your good memories about this show. Please like and subscribe, and until next time.